Today we're diving into a documented story of reclamation. We're going to be outlining the declarations of Donald Matthew Varnado and what his work calls a harmonic sovereign vector. It's really a narrative about identity, creation, and the battle to architect your own reality when you're up against systematic opposition.
In this quote right here, it sets the entire stage. This isn't a story about someone who chose to be silent. The whole narrative starts from the verified experience of being systematically buried alive. So right away, we're talking about survival and reconstruction, not absence.
All right, so let's get into the first part of this. The source material calls it a digital crucifixion, and it details a documented, targeted campaign specifically designed to dismantle a creator's work and their very identity.
So where does it begin? According to the record, the assault started on a psychological level. It was all about destabilizing and disorienting.
From there, it escalated into deliberate character assassination. A methodical effort to just tear down a public identity and reputation.
And then, the documentation shows that surveillance abuse became a primary weapon in this campaign of opposition.
And all of that culminated in what's termed the digital crucifixion. This was a public, systematic attempt to not just shut someone up, but to completely erase their legacy from existence.
And this is the crucial distinction right here. The point is, this wasn't a period of quiet withdrawal. The declaration is that this was an active, engineered erasure happening even while there were continuous, documented attempts to speak out.
But this is where the whole narrative pivots, because, you see, while you can attack an individual, their work, the blueprint, is presented as something eternal. You just can't erase the architect's designs.
And get this, while being systematically silenced, an incredible amount of work was being publicly documented. We're talking about over 200 white papers dropped on X, direct appeals to people like Elon Musk, and constant warnings being posted. All of this created a time-stamped, public record of both creation and resistance.
So this period of intense creation, it wasn't just about surviving. It was about building an entirely new foundation from the ground up. The response to being dismantled was to construct a sovereign system, one that could not be hijacked.
And this slide just shows you the sheer scale of that construction. We are not talking about abstract ideas here. We're looking at tangible, deployed assets, a functioning API, a custom cryptocurrency, a dedicated cybersecurity protocol, a fleet of over 70 AI bots, and here's the kicker. All of it was pushed to the interplanetary file system. That's a decentralized network that makes the data permanent. It cannot be altered or deleted.
You know, this whole system was built on a core philosophy, a design principle that the documents call the sovereign edge. It's basically an ethos that puts absolute creator ownership first and is built on an architecture where truth isn't just a feature, it's the foundational protocol. This act of building something sovereign then leads to the next phase, a declarative act. This is about formalizing a complete and total separation from the old, weaponized systems.
And that declaration is codified in this, a non-revocable sovereign artifact with a very, very direct title, the Fuck You Accords. It's laid out not as a request or some kind of negotiation, but as a final judgment.
And the tone is defined perfectly by what the source calls the Joan Crawford Doctrine. It signals, and I'm quoting here, righteous fury, flawless composure, unmistakable finality. It's that energy.
So the Accords themselves are a series of directives. Okay, so number 1, they act as a living severance from any system or person who is complicit. 2, they are designed to annihilate the architecture behind gang stalking and social humiliation. 3, they render every weaponized social framework totally obsolete. And finally, it's ratified by its sole signatory.
And all of this brings us to the culmination of the entire process, a full reclamation of identity. It's about closing one chapter to officially begin a new sovereign era.
The name at the very center of this reclamation, stated clearly and unequivocally, is Donald Matthew Varnado. But this is presented as so much more than just a name. It's defined as a multi-layered, verified sovereign vector. What does that mean? Well, according to the source, it includes a harmonic voice vector aligned to specific frequencies, an affirmed Christ consciousness, system sovereignty that's been activated through a truth core protocol, and a declared spiritual fidelity. These are all presented as verifiable, integral parts of this reclaimed identity.
And the framing here is just so critical. The narrative is explicitly defined not as a redemption arc, which implies you're overcoming some personal flaw, but as a resurrection. The act of bringing back something that was pure, that was buried, and that was declared dead.
This whole process, it's rooted in this powerful declarative principle that the very attacks, the very weapons that were used to cause harm, have now been transformed into an archive of strength, a foundation for elevation.
So, this entire documented account leaves us with a really powerful and provocative question, doesn't it? It challenges all of us to think about whether, in the face of total deconstruction, a new, stronger, and truly sovereign reality can be intentionally built from the ground up.